Today's workout is a first trimester deep core and pelvic floor workout. We'll focus on learning to properly engage and fire your deep core and pelvic floor for pregnancy. All you need is a mat. Let's get started. Hey mamas, welcome to today's workout. Today we have a 10-minute first trimester deep core and pelvic floor workout. So we're going to focus on engaging our core using our breath and engaging the deep core and pelvic floor muscles to stay strong throughout our pregnancy. So we'll go ahead and begin on all fours with your hands under shoulders and knees under hips. We're going to practice some diaphragmatic deep breathing. So what we're going to do is inhale, release the belly. Exhale, I want you to pull your belly button into spine from the bottom up. So you're going to go lower, middle, upper abs, and then close the ribs on that exhale. Inhale, release the belly, exhale, lower, middle, upper abs, close the ribs. When you're exhaling through a pursed lip. So inhale through your nose, exhale like you're blowing out through a straw. Let's keep going. Hands are firmly planted. You're not clenching with your hands. You're not clenching with your butt. You're just using your abs. So if you want to see here too as well, you can see the expansion through the rib cage. Rib cage closes down. So you can see I've got a little bit of bloating already here. It's not really a baby, but my first trimester, I have a ton of bloating. If you're there with me, comment, I'm with you. But anyway, so this is going to help us connect to the pelvic floor, deep core, which is really important to do because that diaphragm is a huge part of our core and pelvic floor. And when our organs get all squished up, it makes it really hard for us to take those deep diaphragmatic breaths. So it's all the more important we can do that now during the first trimester. And I would suggest doing this every day. We're doing 2 minutes, and that's perfect for a daily regimen. And you could do it like I was just showing you. You can do it here. I like to show kind of here and from the side profile, but you can even do standing or seated, whatever works for you. Okay, we're going to move on to our back now for a single leg extension with a knee press. So we're going to take the front knee over the hip, push the hands into the knee, take the opposite leg upward, lower back toward the floor, and we're going to extend that opposite leg back and forth. So push the leg to 45 degrees and then bend the knee over the hip. Inhale here. Exhale as you extend that leg, squeeze the quad. Now, with this leg that's staying stationary, I'm pushing my hands into that kneecap or right below it, and then I'm keeping that knee over the hip at 90 degrees. Now, if that's too intense, you can alleviate some of that pressure by taking that leg down on the floor and taking the hands out of the equation. But if you're here, it's going to put a little more pressure on that deep core to fire as you're moving this leg. And again, that's going to put more pressure too. And you can also tap this foot as a modification. All right, let's do that same thing on the other side. So quick rest. We're going to take 10 seconds in between, but if you need longer, of course, take longer. So lift the opposite leg, push your hands into the knee, and then front leg goes out and in. As you're exhaling, pushing away, you want to make sure that lower back is not arching off the floor. We keep it pressing downward. You can still fit your hands underneath maybe, but there's not a substantial arch there. That's going to keep the back supported. And again, keep that pressure in the core, the front of the body. Keep pushing those hands into that knee. The more you can push your hands into your knee and then also give that feedback from your knee into your hands, the more that deep core and pelvic floor is going to fire up. It's a small, subtle movement, but it's really intentional and actually takes a lot of effort if you're doing it right. It doesn't look like much, but it's really active. All right, we're going to move on to a bent knee hip circle. So just relax for a second. We're going to take the hands by our side. We're going to take the knees back over the hips, lower back toward the mat. We're going to circle the legs. We're going to press them downward and then make a little circle around and then back together at 90 degrees. Exhale as the legs push away. Inhale as they come back together. And again, as we push the legs away, anytime limbs come away from the body, that core is going to work harder. So we want to make sure we're really bracing and pulling that belly button in toward the spine, keeping things tight here. Couple more seconds. The further out you push your legs, the more intense it will be. So if you want to make it less intense, just keep them right around 90 degrees. All right, we're moving on now to a bird dog. So come back over onto your hands and knees, hands under shoulders and knees under the hips. We're going to extend the front arm and the back leg, arm to shoulder height and leg to hip height. Opposite side. So we want to move the arm and leg together. Keep the hips square to the floor, chest square to the floor. Exhale and use that core and pelvic floor to hold it at the top. So we want to feel really stable here. Moving slow and in control. Try to lengthen the arm, lengthen the leg all the way. If that's too intense or you're finding it hard to balance, you can take the hand and the foot to the corner and just tap out onto the floor. Or you can practice doing just the arms or just the legs. Another great option. All right, we're going to move on to a bird dog with a pulse. So we're going to stay on one side for the 50-second interval, and then we'll do the other side. So come back into that hands and knees position, and this one's going to be a little more intense. So lift the front arm and the back leg. We're going to keep it up, and we're going to pulse. 1 inch up and down. So again, we're staying in that top range of the movement, but make sure you're not going too high with the leg. If you kick too high with the leg or go too high with the arm, it's going to throw you off balance. Pressing into that opposite hand, and make sure it's going to feel more intense for the shoulders here. So if you're leaning back, it's going to also throw you off balance. So make sure you're staying with that shoulder over the wrist and the hand that's on the floor. And I understand if you need to take more breaks in this interval, absolutely do that. This one's tough. Don't feel like you're not strong if you can't make it. It is designed to be a little bit more intense, kind of a burnout exercise. But so good for those glutes, especially with that little pulse at the top. All right, relax for a second, and we're going to switch sides. So just shift back if you want to take some of that pressure off the shoulders. We're going to come back here, engage that core. Let's pulse. And this is a go-to exercise, not just for first trimester, but for second trimester, third trimester, postpartum. I mean, this one does it all. It's so good for core stability, which is just really important for having a strong, resilient core through pregnancy, and to just combat some of that abdominal separation or just severe core dysfunction. A lot of abdominal separation and core dysfunction is just normal and not necessarily preventable or even something to fear, but this will help us stay strong and just maintain a lot of that core strength, or even build core strength. If you're new to a lot of this, you haven't really focused on your core yet, it is a great time to do it in the first trimester because you can still do a lot of good abdominal training with not many limitations yet. So it's a great time to work on that. All right, let's roll over. We're going to come back to our backs and do a glute bridge with an abduction. So we're going to take the heels close to your butt, lift the hips, and then drive the knees out and in. We're going to keep it up, out, and in. So just pushing the knees open, just about 3 to 5 inches. You don't need to go super wide here. And in fact, I don't want you to go too wide and take those take things out of alignment here. So you want to keep the heels down, squeeze those glutes, and then bringing the knees back to about hip width apart here. Just a couple inches out and in. Now option, you can just lightly tap the hips and do one at a time here. You could also add a resistance band. I've done that in a few of my videos. And that's a great way to add more resistance to this movement. All right, we're gonna move over now into a marching glute bridge. So we're gonna stay on our backs, and this time we're gonna keep the hips up and alternate legs coming up. So knee comes over the hip, front leg, and then the back leg. Keep your feet about hip width apart. If they're too close, it's gonna be hard to balance here. You wanna also keep the hips up. As you lift the leg, do you notice your hips sinking or dropping. Try to combat that by squeezing your butt, keeping that strong core brace here. So make sure you're not overly arching your back to lift up those hips and taking that work out of the glutes. Because if you arch your back so much, it's gonna put it more here, less here, and in the hamstrings. So we want it more glutes and hamstrings. So not as high as you possibly can, but high enough to where you feel it here. You've got a nice, long, straight spine. And again, anything with movement is so good for just our core stability and building that core and pelvic floor strength. And that's it. That actually went by faster than I thought it would. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'd love to hear your comments where you're at in your pregnancy, maybe some of the things that you're dealing with, and that helps me come up with content. But I'm gonna be taking you through my entire pregnancy, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, and postpartum. So I'd love to hear what you all wanna see in the comments. I always appreciate your feedback as well. I hope you enjoyed today's workout, and I'll see you back here next time.